Okay, so you guys sent in some really interesting material for this deep dive, and I'll be honest, some of it's a little creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a lot more on the spooky side this time.
Yeah, this one's got a lot of spooky vibes to it. So we're looking at Tat Tak School.
Yeah, Tat Tak School in Pingshan.
In Pingshan, Hong Kong. And it seems like, just from what we've seen so far, that this place has a reputation, right?
It has a huge reputation.
Yeah.
It's one of the most haunted places in Hong Kong, if not the most haunted place.
Yeah, and so I think our mission here is to kind of untangle like the fact from the fiction, the history from the ghost stories.
Definitely, because there's a lot of both.
Yeah, there's a lot of both, and I think that's part of what makes this place so fascinating.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a place that really captures the imagination, and it's interesting because you have this documented history of the school itself, which kind of intertwines with these legends and ghost stories that have grown up around it.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because, like you said, it has a documented history, so we can go back and kind of see, okay, like, how did this school come to be? And it didn't actually start in the building that everyone thinks of when they think of Tat Tak School. It actually began in February 1931 in the Yuki Ancestral Hall.
That's right, yeah. And that's actually really important because Yuki Ancestral Hall was one of the earliest educational institutions in the new territories.
Right. So from the very beginning, it was associated with learning and kind of community development.
Exactly. It wasn't a place of fear initially. It was a place of, growth and education.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting contrast to how it's perceived now. And even when you look at its history, like even during the Japanese occupation from 1941 to 1945, classes were suspended at the school because of, the war and everything that was happening.
Yeah, it just goes to show how the school was really intertwined with the wider events happening in Hong Kong at the time.
Right. Yeah, and it seems like it moved around a bit in those early years, like before it settled into that building that we think of.
Right. It was kind of bouncing around to different halls as the number of students grew.
Yeah, trying to keep up with the demand for education.
Exactly. And then in the 1960s, they decided, okay, we need a proper dedicated building for this school, and that's when the current structure was built.
In 1965, right?
Yeah, 1965. That's the one we see in all the photos, the U-shaped building with the classrooms and the hall, even a basketball court.
Yeah, it was the biggest primary school in Yuen Long at the time.
With over 700 students.
Huh.
Yeah, and over 20 staff. Imagine that compared to how it is now, just completely deserted and abandoned.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast, and it makes you think, like, what happened? Like, what shifted this narrative from a place of, learning and community to a place of fear?
Well, that's where the ghost stories come in, and they're really layered and complex. But one of the most persistent rumors is that the school was built on a burial ground.
Yeah, a burial ground for villagers who died during the Six-Day War in 1899.
Right, the Six-Day War. That was when the local clans resisted the British taking control of the new territories. And it said that hundreds of villagers were killed during that conflict.
Yeah, and it's a significant event, like around 500 people died.
Exactly. A lot of bloodshed, a lot of tragedy. And so the story goes that the school is built right on top of where these people were buried.
And then you have another layer of tragedy with the Japanese occupation.
Yeah, there are accounts that suggest that during the Japanese occupation starting in 1941, many people were killed by Japanese forces and buried in mass graves on or near the school grounds.
So you have these two distinct periods of, significant loss of life associated with that area.
Right, which really adds to the sense of, darkness and tragedy surrounding the site.
It definitely feeds into the haunted reputation, but it's important to remember as we're talking about this that these claims of mass graves haven't actually been officially confirmed.
That's right. Right.
And one of the sources actually mentions that some local villagers haven't even heard of these ghost stories.
Which is interesting.
Which is really interesting. It just goes to show you how legends can kind of develop and spread even without concrete proof.
Exactly. It's like a game of telephone, where the story changes a little bit each time it's told.
Right. But regardless of whether they're true or not, they've definitely contributed to the school's eerie reputation.
Oh, absolutely. And then, of course, you have the most famous ghost story associated with Tat Tak School, the story of the headmistress.
The one in the red dress.
Yeah, the lady in red. This story pops up again and again in different accounts, and the most common version is that this headmistress took her own life by hanging herself in a bathroom at the school while wearing a red dress.
And the red dress is important, right? Because in Chinese culture, red is often associated with spirits and vengeance.
Exactly. So it's not just a random detail. It adds a whole other layer of meaning to the story. And the motive behind her suicide is often linked to some kind of traumatic event, like being raped.
Oh, wow.
And the story goes that her spirit is still there, haunting the school, seeking revenge.
It's a really disturbing image, and it's so ingrained in the school's lore, but our sources also present some alternative viewpoints on this story.
Yeah, it's not as straightforward as it might seem at first glance.
Right, like apparently there's no police record of a headmistress committing suicide at the school.
No record whatsoever.
And then there's the account from William Tang, the fashion designer, who was actually a student at Tat Tak School.
Right, he said that the story he heard as a kid was that it was the headmaster's wife who died. And it happened at their home, not at the school.
So it's fascinating to see how these stories can change and morph over time.
It's almost like folklore. You know how these stories get passed down and embellished along the way?
Yeah, and then, of course, you have a much more recent event that happened in 2011 with the group of secondary school students.
Oh, yeah. That one's pretty unsettling.
Yeah, that one really kind of solidified Tat Tak School's haunted reputation in more modern times.
It was a pretty dramatic incident.
Yeah, so these 12 secondary school students decided to explore the abandoned school. You know, probably drawn in by the ghost stories.
Yeah, just teenagers looking for a thrill, right?
Exactly, but they ended up having some pretty disturbing experiences.
Yeah, they reported hearing whispers, seeing a woman in red, which obviously connects back to the headmistress legend.
And it wasn't just seeing or hearing things. Some of them had pretty intense physical and emotional reactions.
Yeah, it was more than just your typical ghost sighting.
Yeah, like 3 of the girls actually fainted.
And they became hysterical. Some were even biting others.
And trying to hurt themselves.
Yeah, one student was even hospitalized. She was having these terrifying visions of people dying in horrible ways.
That's really disturbing.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine what those kids went through.
It's easy to see how an event like that would just add to the school's reputation as a place of negative energy.
Oh, for sure. It just cements the idea that something really dark and sinister is going on there.
But it's interesting because academics who looked into this incident suggested that what the students experienced might have been a form of mass psychogenic illness.
Yeah, where stress and suggestion in a group setting can lead to shared physical and psychological symptoms.
Right, so it's possible that they weren't actually seeing ghosts, but rather experiencing a kind of collective hallucination brought on by their own fear and expectations.
Which is fascinating because it shows how powerful our minds can be and how they can influence our perceptions.
Yeah, it really blurs the lines between the paranormal and the psychological.
Absolutely, and it makes you question what's really going on in these supposedly haunted places.
Yeah, are we really seeing ghosts, or are we just seeing what we expect to see?
It's a tough question to answer.
So apart from this 2011 incident, are there any other paranormal claims or sightings associated with Tat Tak School?
Oh yeah, there are a few others. For example, people who play war games in abandoned places like Tat Tak have reported seeing the ghost of a teacher with long hair.
A long-haired teacher.
Yeah, and then there's also the fact that the school is surrounded by graves.
Oh, right, like actual graves.
Yeah, you can see them from the road, which definitely adds to the creepy atmosphere.
Yeah, you can imagine being there at night, seeing those graves in the darkness.
Yeah, it would be pretty unnerving.
So all of this has really kind of seeped into popular culture, right?
Oh, absolutely. Tat Tak School has become a bit of a cultural icon.
Yeah, like filmmakers love using it as a location for their movies and TV shows.
Yeah, it's got that classic abandoned school look, all dilapidated and overgrown.
Yeah, it's very visually striking and kind of eerie.
And it's ironic because some of the props that film crews have left behind, like metal bars, have actually fueled rumors that the school was once a prison.
So the fictional portrayals are actually feeding back into the real-life legends.
Yeah, they're like a weird loop where fiction and reality become blurred.
And it's not just local filmmakers who are interested in Tat Tak. It's even gained international attention.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Like in 2013, the National Geographic Channel featured it in an episode of their show, I Wouldn't Go In There.
Which is all about haunted places in Asia.
Right, and CNN even listed it as one of the top 10 scariest places in Asia.
So it's officially on the paranormal map now.
Yeah, it's gone global.
It's gone global.
So I guess the question is, what do we make of all of this?
Yeah, like what are the key takeaways from all these stories and accounts?
What makes Tat Tak School so haunted?
Well, I think it's a combination of factors. You have the historical rumors, the unverified claims of mass graves, the persistent legend of the headmistress in red, and then the more recent 2011 incident with the students.
It's like this perfect storm of tragedy and mystery.
Yeah, it's a place where history and folklore and personal experience all kind of collide.
And I think it speaks to our fascination with the unexplained, with the darkness that might lurk beneath the surface of things.
Absolutely. We're drawn to these stories because they tap into our deepest fears and anxieties.
And they make us question what we believe about the world and what might be out there beyond our understanding.
So what do you make of all this?
I mean, It's hard to say for sure what's real and what's not, but I think that's part of the appeal.
Yeah, the ambiguity, the mystery.
Yeah, and I think it raises some interesting questions about our relationship with the past, with the stories we tell ourselves about the places we inhabit.
Exactly. Like, what does it say about us that we're so drawn to haunted places?
What are we really searching for when we explore these dark corners of history and folklore?
It's something to think about for sure.
It is. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder that question.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this, so feel free to share them with us.
Until next time, happy exploring and stay curious.
And maybe sleep with the lights on for a while.
Yeah, maybe.